This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. If you go back to the original building, this was a fish market. It was Sebring Fish Market. Back in the 50s, I believe late 50s, Frank Koza moved to town, and it became Koza's grocery store. I don't know do you remember Frank and Jerry Koza?
I came in 76, but I came at full time in 77.
Okay. They would have been moving on by then. They would have moved south. Yeah, so this was Koza's Grocery, and then Ken Wilkinson had it. I don't know if you remember Kenny Wilkinson.
Oh, yeah.
This was the credit bureau. This was his credit bureau.
I took him to broker school for real estate.
No kidding.
And he would sneak out the back because the Boston Celtics they were in the championship with the Lakers, and he couldn't stand it.
Oh.
He couldn't stand to being in the broker. So he says, teach me everything at night. We were in the same hotel room. So I taught him everything. I was up all night telling him everything that I just learned so he could get a broker's license.
That's funny. So you did all the grunt work for Kenny Wilkinson so that he could watch the games.
He died right after that, and Audrey Wilkinson, his wife,
yes,
asked if I would buy Century 21.
Gotcha.
So from top associate, I became broker owner.
And that's how you became the man, the myth, the legend of all things real estate and more.
I was a little bit before that, but well, I don't know. I've been involved in so many things because when I moved up here, I was in very bad health. And I was forcing myself to do things because of my health situation. My wife had left me, and I was in a deep depression. And Lucky Dixon offered me a job over at the Sebring Middle School to help him coach football and basketball. So I jumped at it.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the start.
Ain't that something? Lucky Dixon. Well, before we go any farther, because we're already up to our ankles. We're past our ankles, almost up to our knees with good stuff. But before we do that, I have to say, with us today on the Havery Show, we have local legend, Pat Dell. You know him from everything from real estate to sports to music stuff in the community. He's always been a great community leader. And Pat, I'm happy to have you on the show today. Thank you for being here.
Always good to be around you, Harry. I remember you in school. You had so much spirit. In fact, I remember you running down the sidelines as a Blue Streak spirit guy.
You know, I don't know if you remember the game or not. I believe it was homecoming. And I think we might have been playing Hardy. I'm not positive. But they had put up a big banner on the visiting side, something about crushing the Blue Streaks or something. And every time I looked over at that banner, it just made me pissed. And you remember Rittenauer. He always brought the horn, the Rams horn, to the games. Gilbreth, yes.
Jimmy Gilbreth. Our Santa Claus.
Yes, our honorary Santa Claus, Jimmy Gilbreth, yes. And he would be in the stands with that horn, and you know the crowd would be getting crazy.
He was part of my 50s and 60s pep squad.
Yes.
We were there, and in the stands, I couldn't stand it. It was like we were at a funeral. The people weren't into it.
Yeah, that's right.
So I got a bunch of people together. I said, let's get a cheering section together. And we started our 50s and 60s pep squad, and Jimmy was there with that horn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it. I was so mad at that sign on the other side. I finally just said, that's it. I can't take it anymore. So I got out of the bleachers, and I kind of walked around, just nonchalantly, I walked around the track. And as I got closer and closer to that sign, I started to jog, and then I started to run, and I got a hold of that sign, and I ripped it down. And by the time I got around the other side of the track, the cheerleaders had formed lines,
Yeah.
and I ran through. And when I came through, they grabbed it, and they ripped it, and they tore it, and they stomped on that sign, and it was one of my greatest moments. I loved cheering for the Mighty Blue Streaks, and I still do.
Yeah, and they've come a long way, and
They have.
and you can thank LeVar Scott.
Absolutely.
I coached him 4 years, by the way.
Yes, you did.
But he has really elevated our program. And Princeton Harrison basketball,
Absolutely.
lots of district championships under
Yes.
Princeton.
Yes.
I coached him too.
Yes, you did.
But when I was coaching, we had not won a district championship. And so I'm proud to be part of the staff when we won the first district championship in the history of Sebring.
Yes.
So that's up on the Hall of Fame wall in the gym. And,
Oh, yeah.
and I think I look at it every time I go there.
Oh, well, you would have to. You're up there with the likes of Jim Tavernier and Glenn Odom, the Bull of the Ridge, and you're up there with Johnny Freeland. You're up there with, and you are one of the legends in local sports.
Jim Tavernier. Oh,
yeah.
my gosh. I started the men's church basketball league of Sebring back in 78, 79.
Yep.
You were with St. Catherine's.
Yes, I was.
You were a little bitty guy there. And I got to guard Jim Tavernier, who was second string All-American.
That's right.
I believe.
Stetson.
Yes. He still had it.
Oh, yeah, he did.
He taught me some moves under there, I tell you. It was so much fun, and that I was proud of. We did that. I was the first commissioner for that, and
Oh, yeah.
they had softball going in the
Yes.
church. I said, "Why don't we do basketball?" And so that's when I started that. And your Bible Fellowship, when you went there later,
That's right.
had two strong teams.
Yes,
Bible Fellowship, blue and white.
That's
or
right.
something. But they were all good.
there was
They were all coaches.
we did. I had the unluck of having to play against them when I was on the St. Catherine's team, and Bible Fellowship always had a good team. Then when I actually went to Bible Fellowship and joined up, and we still had the church league basketball. There was one night we were playing at the YMCA, and they have the covered basketball courts, but we were playing, and it was heated. It was heated. We had competitors on our team. They didn't like to lose.
I know.
And you're going to have to remind me of, I should know her name, but she was the director of the Y. She was the volleyball coach at South Florida State College. Maybe still is, actually. And it's on the tip of your tongue, too. It's on the tip of mine.
Kim Crawford.
And as the game got hotter and hotter, she's finally said, the next time I have to talk to you guys, I'm throwing you all out. And Bible Fellowship Church, and I forget who the other team was, but we were the first team in the history of church basketball to have the game canceled and thrown out. And Eugene Bankson was on that team.
Yeah,
the pastor of the church got thrown out.
He's also competitive.
Absolutely.
And for his size, he was awfully good.
He played for Coach Tavernier.
So he was very good.
Yes, he was, and he's still very active in tennis, senior tennis, doing the senior games.
Amazing.
Truly.
I mean, I'm going on 79 years old now.
Yeah.
And we're going back, 45 years?
Yeah.
But again, I was doing that to push myself.
Yes.
I used to look like the mummy with so much bandages all taped up all the way, and then afterwards I would have to ice myself down.
That's right.
My pastor used to come to my house and say, "Pat, you got to stop doing this." I'm laying on the couch and ice packs all over me and taking pain pills, but it was worth it.
Yeah, it always is.
Was worth it.
Yes,
because it lifted me out of that deep depression I was in. I really needed it. And coaching the kids, I pushed them, which made me push myself.
Yes, depression is one of those things that unless you've lived it, you cannot relate to it, in my opinion. I've also struggled with it. And the people that would say, "Oh, just decide to be happy today," or "Oh, you've got so much to be thankful for," which is all true. But unless you've been in the pit, you don't know what it's like.
That's when you get on your knees and turn to God, even though you don't have any answers and you wonder why. You throw yourself to the bottom of the pits and turn to Him, and all of a sudden the doors open. The plan was there all the time, but He wasn't going to push you through that door. You had to walk through it.
That's the key. That's the key right there.
Yeah. That's how I got to Sebring.
Yeah. Yeah, and Sebring and Highlands County, the whole area has benefited from you being here.
Well, thank you.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020.
I did enjoy, I was founder and first president of the Highlands County Boys and Girls Club.
Yes.
It's a good legacy. It's going good.
It sure is.
Park
Yeah.
doing very good also. Easter Seals chairman for 6 years.
Yeah.
We had created a new event. It was a 12-hour bowl-a-thon. Took the 12 hours of Sebring and just made it into bowling. We went from 7 at night to 7 in the morning. And I put a car, red convertible, on right and parked inside. And anyone rolls a 300 game during that 12 hours, you would win the car.
No kidding.
I could not get an insurance company to give a special event insurance. Lloyd's of London, nobody would touch it.
Wow.
Because they were all in the same lane. I wasn't rotating. Well, we had every lane filled up.
Sure.
It would have been too hard to do. So I was back in it. And one guy had 9 strikes in a row. And the rule was I had to be there for the 10th frame if you have that many in a row. And I said, I want to wish you good luck. And I squeezed his hand pretty hard. And his next ball was a gutter ball. Save that sports. That convertible.
Wow. So yeah, your handshake was your own insurance policy, wasn't it?
And we did the first Night Glow golf tournament in the state of Florida. There was an article in the paper, and I read it, and I'd sent away for it right away. And the little Sebring Shores par 3 course was perfect.
Oh yeah.
So we had it there, and Bob Weed Live.
Bob Weed Live.
Yeah, we went across the street, and we had him entertain us, and we gave away a lot of prizes, and we earned a lot of money there. And then I had the boxing show besides. So I did all these events, and it ended up I was a top fundraiser in the state of Florida, and Pat Boone, who was the national spokesperson for Easter Seals, invited me for a private luncheon in Las Vegas, and they flew me out there. And that was neat.
Oh yeah.
Because I reminded them at the Reading, it was a Pennsylvania State Fair in Reading, Pennsylvania. And he was about to sing, and a terrific thunderstorm came, and everybody ran and scattered. And I stayed on the chain link fence up front. And he told me, he was on stage, and he says, get up here, get up here. And I said, do you remember that? He said, you were that boy? I says, yes, sir.
Wow.
Pat Dell.
Oh yes.
Yeah, that was neat. And he did remember it.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So there's good things. And the coaching, we got to do a lot of things besides win the first district championship. We would go to Nike clinics and meet the top 10 of the 12 coaches that were in the Sweet 16.
Yes. How about that?
That was Dean Smith there.
Yeah.
And everybody's asking him questions, but no one asked him the question I wanted to know, so I went up and asked him.
What was the question?
With everybody screaming and hollering, the gymnasium is so loud, how can they hear your instructions on when to do your notorious traps that you guys do? And he told me.
What was it?
I'm not telling you.
Oh, yeah, seriously.
Everybody else will know. I don't want them coaches to know.
Well, all right. Fair
But
enough.
he did. So
Fair enough.
we instilled that, and it works.
Wow. Did you employ that in church league basketball too?
No. Didn't do that there.
You were.
We won. Faith Lutheran, we won. So I was really, I had the two Ghost brothers, Mark Ghost
Yeah.
and John Ghost.
good athletes.
Two little guards that would, man, they were spunky.
Yeah,
they could
absolutely.
really fly.
Scrappers.
And Coach Dave Spiel
Sure.
from Indiana, of course,
Yep.
he had to be a good player.
Oh yeah.
And our center, the insurance guy, Steve Bond Insurance.
Yes.
6'6", Steve Bond. And yeah.
Yeah, you guys were a powerhouse.
Yeah.
I remember when I played for St. Catherine's, and we did not have what you would call a stacked team. We had me, and we had my brother Peter. We had my brother Vinny,
Uh-huh.
and me and Peter recruited Vinny. And Vinny, he wasn't the most athletic in the family. And I'll never forget, as long as I live, the very first tip off, and we got possession, and we came running from half court down to our rim. And Vinny said two things. He said, "Whatever you do, don't throw me the ball." And then somebody, just a minute later, somebody threw him the ball, and he had it in his hands, and he said, "Forgive me, Father, I know not what I do." I don't know if he shot it or threw it to somebody else, but
You guys were physical. Tavernier was okay, but there was two other guys.
we had Rich Banco on there
There's
on our team.
Steve Roberts or something.
Steve Roberts, and we had Jerome Kazabowski was on that
There
team.
was a couple of them that were pretty physical.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, we had to be because we lacked other skill sets.
Oh yeah. See, there's a picture of Pat Boone when I was out there.
Oh yeah,
And next to the right was Tom Bohr, because he raised the most money for the 12 hours bowling. He was a pink striper at the hospital,
okay.
so he hit up all the doctors and all the nurses,
Uh-huh.
and patients for pledges for how many pins he would knock down. They would give him so much money for each pin,
Gotcha.
and he raised the most money. So I took him with me to Las Vegas.
Fantastic.
And he told me afterwards it was the highlight of his life. And the next year he died.
No kidding.
So that's another good thing.
You gave him a great memory, didn't you?
Yeah. He gave me a great memory too.
Some of this stuff, it's looking like Sebring News, but we had a sports newspaper back in the 70s and early 80s, and I've got an issue of it tucked away. I was going to try to find it, but there's no telling. What was the name of that? We had our own sports paper.
Highlands County Sports Line.
Sports Line. Yes.
Rick Moyer and I were the owners.
Yes.
Rick was the editor of the Sebring News, and he asked me if I would join him in that venture. And I said, I don't know anything. I can't write. He taught me. But he said, you have the ability to sell ads.
Oh,
We
yeah.
need to get that. And he would send me out and do interviews and covering events and everything else. And it became a terrific newspaper.
Oh, it did. It had a good run.
Magazine. 3 years we ran. And Rick Moyer was very talented.
Yes.
And he was also a photographer. And we covered everything that was happening in Highlands County. And not only that, we would go cover the Bucks,
Yes.
the Dolphins.
Yes.
And we would even do overruns of about 3,000 copies. And I would drive down to Broward County and North Dade and distribute it.
Yeah.
And I had to get permission to put them in restaurants, banks, and all these places. And I would even drop it off to Miami Dolphins headquarters. And the guy who was the editor of the Dolphin Digest loved it. He moved up here and started working for us.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And who was that?
That's in one of the papers.
Is he still around? Did that
No,
move?
He's passed on.
Gotcha.
But he was very talented too. And Don Shula loved him.
Yes.
So we had a good in for that. But not only that, I coached 1 year down before I got hurt at Hollywood Chaminade. David Shula. And Don Shula would come to every game on Friday. He wouldn't miss. No matter what was happening, he would come to those games.
Yeah.
And David, he broke records, went to Dartmouth, broke records.
Sure.
So it was a pretty good year.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. We had Sportsline. We also had the iconic sports talk show with Ed Lynch and his cohort, Larry Johnson.
Yes.
You were involved in that, too.
Yes, and Ed Lynch talked me into doing the game of the week, whether it was football or basketball. And we would travel and do the game of the week.
Yeah.
And one time we were up in, we were covering South Florida State College, which was junior college back then. And they were powerful.
Sure.
The coach was recruited from Houston. And he brought one player along with him. You know who that player was?
I do not.
George Floyd.
No kidding.
The man who just changed everything in America. George Floyd, the one that the cop kneeled on his neck until he died. He was the sixth man. Floyd was pretty not smart. So he was a handpicked that was allowed by the college to bring one player. And I interviewed all the players when they were there. And some of these guys were great All-American. We got them here.
Yeah.
But the coach would show them Fort Lauderdale and Daytona Beach and then brochures and this and that. And then they arrived at Avon Park.
Yeah.
Oh, my. That was a culture shock for them. And it didn't last very long.
They
won. They won the championship.
Was this SFSC had a basketball program twice? They had it in the late '60s, and Rodney Hollinger played on that. That's when it was that before. Now we're talking about in the '80s when it was resurrected.
These were.
Me and Peter went to the very first game. That was exciting stuff.
And I did the broadcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did not know that about George Floyd.
And we went up there to Central Florida. Jim, and on the way back, he got a flat on I-4. We had to change it with all that traffic.
Oh, yeah.
And all he had was one of these little bicycle kind of spare tires.
Yes.
And I go, oh, Lord. We're going to drive down I-4 like that. And not going very fast. So we're lucky we didn't get killed.
Oh, yeah.
But Ed Lynch he loved Highlands County.
He did.
Sports, especially baseball.
Yes.
And basketball. And but it was fun doing.
Oh, yeah.
One time it was I got to tell you this. We were in Lake Placid and it was an electrical rainstorm, and the antenna fell over that he had up for, and they weren't receiving us. So he says, just go ahead and do the game. I'll go up and fix it. And he come back. And his hair looked like it had a perm in it. I think he got struck by lightning.
Oh, man.
Ever since that, he kept that perm look.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And he that was iconic, too. He had that, well, as long as I've known him, almost.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, what a good guy.
Yep.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting. 863-385-5020.
Sports Night, Channel 5 and Channel 12.
Yes.
Mark Pinson.
Mark Pinson
used to be a professional highlight player.
Yeah.
And he went to college to be a sportscaster. So he had a background. And I was invited to one show they had, and we did the show together. And when we got done, they said, we want you guys a regular. We want you to do this and do that. And Mark and I said, we'll do it, but it's going to be our show. Yeah. We'll pay you for that hour, but it's our show. We control it completely. And it went pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
And that went for 3 years, too, until they wanted us to buy the equipment. And the owner, it was antique. And they wanted way too much money. But he went to Winter Haven, figured it was a bigger market, and he didn't last but a year.
Yeah.
They went back. But a TV show here, we were doing good. And I wanted to expand into breakfast clubs, going to different breakfast restaurants, which
Yes.
Fox News is doing now.
Yeah, that's right.
Back then, I wanted to do that, and I got that from Art Linkletter in the
Uh-huh.
old days.
Yes.
You know, I said, let's go to be a breakfast club and interview everybody, and of course, interviewing the fans at the Sebring 12-hour track was a hoot.
Oh yeah.
Many stories there we won't go into.
That's a good idea. What do you think about if you had to think back, what would be maybe one of your highlight sporting events for Highlands County as a fan? As a fan.
It's when I had the United States Amateur Boxing Championships here.
Yeah.
I outbid Tampa, Miami, Orlando, Jacksonville, all the big cities.
Mm-hmm.
And I was only 1 year. We started Highlands County Amateur Boxing Club.
Yep.
And I went to the meeting and I outbid everybody.
Ain't that something?
Then I had to put it together.
Yeah.
And it was great. And the reason I think I won is because it was in February of 1982.
Mm-hmm.
February, that's the peak season.
Sure.
Hotels, no rooms.
Yeah.
I had the Kenilworth Hotel before it was remodeled.
Mm-hmm.
And all the rooms were there.
That's right.
So I put them in there. And that was another state of shock for everybody. You know, they thought they were in Casablanca and they were looking for Humphrey Bogart and Sidney Greenstreet to come down with the blazing fireplace. And they got in their rooms and no TV, no air conditioning, no phones,
Oh yeah.
rusted tubs and everything. They were like, oh my gosh. But you know what? It ended up being one of the best amateur championship boxing because there was no distractions.
That's right.
Sebring didn't have the distractions
Yes.
that Big City had.
Yes. Yes.
Where those athletes would go out
Sure.
and not. And we had a superstar from Georgia, Evander Holyfield. And he was undefeated and he came here. And my gym was where the museum is now for the Naval Museum on Kenilworth.
Absolutely, yeah.
That was my gym.
That's right.
That was my boxing gym.
Yep.
And he went out there and worked out in the heavy bag just to work up his sweat and stuff before his bouts. And he won his first bout. Second bout, one of the best fights I've ever seen, nonstop action. He lost to a Marine from Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. A Marine broke his eardrum. And my doctors were Jim Spiegel and O.A. Spiegel.
Uh-huh.
And I got pictures of them, with attending them. And the funny part about it was later he makes the Olympic team.
Yeah.
And he goes all the way to the gold medal round.
Yep.
And he gets disqualified for hitting the guy after the bell rang because he couldn't hear it.
Oh, he couldn't
From that
hear
little injury he got in Sebring.
Oh my goodness! Incidentally, is that the ear that Tyson bit?
Oh, no, I think that I'm not sure. It's a Tyson animal. Unbelievable.
Hey, with your boxing, did you ever cross paths with Joe Gallimore? Remember Joe?
Of course.
Yeah, good guy.
Joe said he went into promotions because of me.
That's right.
Joe Gallimore. He told me many times. He even recognized me at some of his promotions and said it.
Yes. Oh yeah.
But then he was working at Wooden-Dixie as butcher.
Yes.
And he was pretty stout.
He was a stout guy.
Pretty stout
yes.
then. And he'd won. And when I saw him, I said, Joe, what happened? You're 300 pounds now. But Joe was a good guy.
Yeah, he remains a good guy. Yeah. And I'm grateful because the boxing angle led him into promoting boxing matches, which led him into promoting music as well. And when he got into that, then he started using my band. So we got a lot of shows from Joe, and it traces back to you. So thank you.
That's unbelievable.
And Joe is still out there. He introduced us for our 40th anniversary just 2 weeks ago at the Genesis Center. He's still out there getting after it. Even I don't know if you know this or not, but he's got some substantial health issues. He needs a kidney. So maybe somebody will be listening to this podcast and they'll say, hey, you know what? Maybe I want to help this guy with a kidney. You never know.
The last 4 years, I've had 2 kidney surgeries, bladder surgery, hip replacement, heart attack, and just last April, a stroke, which took away my speech ability and walking ability for about 10 weeks. I was scared.
Yeah.
I was scared. So I did finish a lot of real estate deals. In fact, I had 3 closings that my broker asked me to come back and finish because she says, I can't handle it. I come back and we got them done. But and last 2 weeks ago, I did my last lakefront listing. I closed it. And I told my daughter, Dawn Dell, who's busting her butt out there being number one, that I like to be a referring agent. I'll be referring to her.
Yes.
If she would like to,
Yes.
to work out a deal with me on referrals. And Dawn Dell,
She's a monster.
she is, the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree.
I'll tell you
Did
what.
you hear a radio ad?
No.
It's spot on. You need to turn on your radio station. And I used to do those radio ads. And
Oh, yeah.
back then we had Comcast cable.
That's right.
I had so many TV ads that were hilarious. I didn't want to do a regular, professional kind
Yes.
of ad. I wanted the people to remember the ad.
Absolutely.
And when I walked through the grocery stores and department stores, people would all yell at me, they saw your ad, you crazy nut. But it paid off.
That's right. Do you remember when Peter had his ads on the radio for Sunshine Sales and he used to sing on them?
Peter,
You remember that?
yeah.
Oh man, that was same thing. Those ads stuck in your heads. So you're
Oh, singing, you did some radio ads. You got the choir, the children's choir at Bible Fellowship to do a couple of my ads for
yes,
me
that's right.
when I was downtown on the Circle with
Yes.
Del Realty.
Yes.
It's a small town after all.
That's right.
It's a small town after all.
I
Remember those?
do. I've got them. They're tucked away somewhere. I saved
That was
everything.
great. They were
Oh,
great.
yeah. Oh yeah.
I wanted to go by when you were at Toe Jam Bay. I would throw my Hawaiian shirts to you and everything.
Oh yeah.
Remember that?
Oh, I got a lot of mileage out of those shirts.
I wanted
Absolutely.
to buy you all the same shirts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you really look more dynamic.
Absolutely. Well, that was.
I over the years I loved all your shows.
Thank you. You put that thought into our head, and because of that, we did start to dress alike, and we started to wear alike Hawaiian shirts. Sometimes open with a solid underneath, and it kind of became a uniform for us, and we've been wearing uniforms really ever since. So yeah, there you go again, having that influence that you didn't even realize you had.
No,
Your daughter Dawn is she is a workhorse.
she's a pit bull.
She is out there. Every time there's an event, she's posting. Every time there's a concert, she's posting. She's just a
But
workaholic.
she's been in the business now 22 years.
Sure.
When did you notice this start happening? Just recently.
Well, I would say
And that is one of the reasons I am so proud of her, not only of her real estate capabilities, but that she's given back to the community.
yeah, and she is in a big
And she
way.
was raised seeing me give back to the community when I didn't have money
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
I just had time and some talent.
hmm
But she's making the money and she's pumping it back to all these events.
I think it's
And I am
wonderful.
proud of her.
Yeah. Well
She
well
has
said.
really found her niche and become a top professional.
100%. Yeah. You got to be proud.
Yep.
What else you got on there you want to tell me about? There's some great stuff on that poster board.
There's when I had WITS
Oh yeah.
shirt down there. That's a Super Bowl in San Francisco when Miami Dolphins played San Francisco, and I'm with Hank Stram, and I hadn't slept in 2 days, and everybody's at a press conference dressed like Stram and ties, and look at me in my WITS shirt.
Love it.
And I said, Hank, affiliate station WITS. How about a picture together? Sure.
Oh, that's awesome.
He comes over and we take a picture, and his breakdown of that game before the game was spot on.
Yeah.
He had it. He really, really digested it. And now I try to do the same thing, but
Yep.
he had done, especially since, we're allowed sports betting in Florida now.
Right. Yes. Speaking of that, there's a lot of speculation going on. Now this has been for a few years, but since the Bills and Chiefs game last week, the speculation has just been going through the roof about the possibility of this being rigged. And there's a script and it's set up ahead of time, kind of like pro wrestling. And it's pro sports across the board.
Yeah, I hate to even think about the possibility of it, but with all the money that's being bet,
Yes.
I mean billions, where would the probability of having somebody control the game to where it could affect the game, where else but the referees? The referees control the game.
That's correct.
And they're the least paid people out there on that field.
That's right.
So they're the most susceptible
Yes.
to a bribe or whatever else.
Yes.
Not only that, human feelings. I refereed basketball,
Oh, yeah.
football, boxing.
Yeah.
I went to special school. I was a judge and everything else. I had to go special training for that. But your human feelings come into effect.
Sure they do.
Times when it's, and you blow that whistle anticipating it just because you didn't like that person or something. And when I was coaching, God bless Darren Collins, I loved him, but he would work the referees the whole game.
Yeah.
It would agitate them, and they would call against us when there wasn't no calls to be.
Yep.
And I tried to tell him, I said, Darren, you're hurting the team.
Yeah.
You just got to pull it back. And I said, there's 3 types of coaches you got to be. I said, you got to be a practice coach, a locker room coach, and a game time coach. There's 3 different things, and you got to separate it.
Yes.
You can't be yelling at them like you're yelling at the players at practice. You can't be yelling at the referees like that all the time, over and over.
Yeah.
But he was a great coach. I was surprised he didn't go to college, get picked up. But and he was the man-to-man guy, man-to-man offense, man-to-man defense. And, I was old school. I had Pete Carrill.
Yeah.
He used to be Reading High School coach, and then Princeton picked him up.
Sure.
But he taught you zones.
Yep.
He taught you how to control the tempo of the game both ways.
Yep.
He taught all 5 men to know what all 5 were going to do
That's
every
right.
time out there. And so he gave me the zone defenses to teach and the zone offense to teach.
Yeah.
And we won.
There it is. Yep. Fundamentals.
We won.
I can't even watch the NBA. It's so frustrating to me. I can't even watch it anymore.
Yeah, I watch college ball yet, and I still go over watch the basketball. And one time I got frustrated and came back to help Princeton for 3 years, but it just got out of hand. Yeah. And then we got back under control, and then had probably my 3rd or 4th heart attack, and I said, I'm out of here.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020.
And let's see, what else would... Oh, Japan trip. That was a big deal.
I remember that when it happened. That was a big deal.
That was a big deal. Westinghouse Development had Coral Ridge Properties, which had Spring Lake Development.
Yes.
And they wanted to stop the electric plant from being built out there, the Sebring Power.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They didn't stop it. They wanted to build a giant marina boat on Lake Istapoga, and the state shut them down there. And all their plans were for a lot of things to happen out there, and they were being shot down. So they decided they're just going to sell it. So they gave the whole development to me. We were talking about 3,500 lots.
Oh, yeah.
I had the Spring Lake Golf Course for sale. The owner was Carl Burst up in Wisconsin. So I had that, and now they were giving me all 3,500 lots, all that commercial property on 98. And I started thinking, wow, what, they're only going to give me 30 days. I said, what can I do? And I thought, Mazda is the major sponsor of the Sebring 12-hour race. There's a super trade imbalance war going on with the United States and Japan right now. Japan just started Century 21 of Japan in Japan, and it was big news. So I thought, well, I'll go over there and tell them they should build their cars here with American builders in Detroit, the auto workers in Detroit, and have all these lots and say, as a bonus, we'll give you a lot if you transfer down here and build their product and test it on the world famous 12-hour track. So I got everybody to help me. I got the industrial park, gave me all kind of stuff. Chamber of Commerce gave me all kind of stuff. Florida's Chamber of Commerce at the state level, they gave me giant 6-foot maps, and they had the mileage to all the points of interest. And I took all the information on all our freshwater lakes, on our railway, on the airport, and the drive. I took everything over in these big suitcases. I flew to Japan. The owners of Century 21 Florida said, Pat, I said, don't do that. It just started, you know. They were trying to talk me down. I said, no, I really got a gut feeling. I need to do this. So we contacted Century 21 in California, and they went and contacted Century 21 in Japan and made the arrangements for an interpreter to meet me when I got there. Wow. What a rush. And an experience. And when I did the presentations to the senior officers of these corporations, you got to remember, I'm from Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania Dutch country, and sometimes my slang still would come into effect, you know. An interpreter wouldn't. But we were at the Hotel Okura, which is where all the big business was done with the congressional people, senators, congressmen, lawyers, and they're up on the balcony watching me do this presentation. So after it's over, and it's about 2 hours, they said, who are you? I said, oh, I'm a real estate broker from Sebring, Florida. I said, oh, yeah? And they said, how many times do you come over? I said, this is my first time. They told me, this don't happen. The Japanese don't even ask questions. They're just polite and everything else until your 5th visit. It takes about 5 times. And they were in amazement. But the Japanese were really interested in the airport, the railways going through the industrial park, the highways, the fresh water, and the golf courses. Because the golf course over there, I had it up for $1.1 million. For their initial membership is $1 million per person.
Kidding.
A round of golf was $100 back then.
Yeah.
You know, it was in 1985 back then. Beautiful golf courses, but they don't have much land. And they were interested on the whole package. So they asked a lot of questions. And when I was trying to say we would build with American auto workers, and this would help to overcome some of the trade imbalance that was going on, everybody was interested in it. So then the senior officers of Mazda told me to get the government officials of Florida together with them to meet, and we can work something out. But they wanted tax concessions and some other things. So I go to Betty Neal, who was Chamber of Commerce. She was so excited. She's running around. She's going, Governor Bob Graham calls me. he says, Pat, I can't just go public and do one county over the other on something like this. He said, but I will meet behind closed doors and try to work something out, and you'll give you all the help I can.
Fantastic.
That was good.
Oh, yeah.
So we go to our local county commissioners. Yeah. Here we are. This is going big time. Can you imagine the impact that would have here for Central Florida?
Oh, yeah.
If that would happen?
Oh, yeah.
They were going to build a giant shopping center right off the bat and had all these other plans that they were going to do.
Yeah.
We don't need the Japanese over here. That was the airport we taught our bombers to bomb their asses. Why would you want them to come here?
Wow.
Hey, this is 1985. Mazda's a sponsor. Why did you have them as a sponsor for the Sebring 12-hour race?
Wow.
But they wouldn't allocate any money or send anybody to go to the meeting from Highlands County. So I kind of got sick on that.
Yeah.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020.
That's also when I was appointed as a delegate to the state convention.
Gotcha.
And I was working Senator Lawton Childs.
Oh, yeah. Walking Lawton.
Back there was Governor Martinez. That was another person I was met. There was the guy who was running for Governor, Frank Mann. I was talking to all of them. And right there shows my delegate thing. But next to it, you see Trump cards. Harry, my grandfather was in politics and strict Democrat. My dad drove John F. Kennedy in a car in Reading, Pennsylvania when he came to Reading.
Mm-hmm.
And he was an alderman there and Democrat. I was shop steward in the post office. I was fighting for labor.
Mm-hmm.
So Democrat was all I really knew.
Sure.
But at that convention, I saw the platform change and the agenda change. And I said, this isn't the Democrats that I know back then.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back in my report, ran to the courthouse and switched to Republican.
Yeah.
And voted for Reagan.
And voted for Reagan. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't the same.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. I mean, I was staunch Democrat. But I
Mm-hmm.
can see it happening.
Yeah. What do you think about it in today's world? I'm of the opinion kind of that they're two sides of the same coin, and I don't trust either of them. I've gotten very cynical when it comes to politics.
Listen, what I love is I never was watching all these here proceedings before. I am now.
Mm-hmm.
And when they did what they did to Judge Kavanaugh and everything else, and what they did to Trump and all the fake, phony stuff and the millions and millions of dollars and turning Americans 50% against each other.
Mm.
And when I watched them, and that there are representatives, I was disgusted. And now even the ones that are screaming the loudest about Robert Kennedy, who was a Democrat and just switched to Republican, and to Tulsi Gabbard, who was a Democrat and switched to Republican. You see all the money they got from these other, pharmaceutical companies and everything else. And other companies. This shouldn't be happening for our people. And it's being, you know what? It's being unveiled because of Trump.
Yeah, I'm at a loss for all of it. I really, really am. Because you said something that speaks to me when you were just talking, I really believe that the whole agenda is divide and conquer. I really do. I believe the political agenda in the United States is to have us turn against each other and eat each other. And that's what I've seen over the past many years.
Years ago, Paul Harvey did a show saying what would happen.
Yeah.
He is spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We live in interesting times, Mr. Dell. Very, very interesting times.
and not to worry about your singing, but I've been a Sebring fireman for 44 years, and someone had the brain idea to have a $1.98 beauty contest.
Oh,
They
yeah.
saw it at another county fair, and because I missed too many meetings, they nominated me to participate. That we all dressed as women,
Oh, yeah.
and sang and entertained. Of course, Howie Godwin was there,
Sure.
and Sheriff
Sure.
Detman, and we had the Griffin. We had the McDonald guy that's now a cop.
Yeah.
we had a lot of fun, and that was quite an experience going out there dressed and singing as a woman.
I'll bet it was. Well, Toe Jam, we used to do a drag set, and Rodney Hollinger did a mean Janis Joplin. I don't know if you remember that or not. We did that at T.G. Bailey's several times, Halloween shows, and we all would T.G. Bailey's. Yes, sir.
Out the cellar.
That's right. Yeah. So, yep. I'll bet you look doggone good in a dress.
Well, there it was.
There you are with the blonde.
My son-in-law said he's not the same yet.
Yeah, everything's gotten kind of crazy. It was
had the first professional boxing show ever here
yeah.
in Dundee.
Yeah.
Co-promoted with me, and we matchmake down there. I stayed with him for a week.
Yeah.
At his house. Can't tell you some of those stories.
Oh yeah.
It goes back to Sonny Liston too.
Uh-huh.
And maybe they were just drinking and lip loose, but it sounded like the truth to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's quite a life. That after I got hurt and I thought my life was over,
Sure.
look what it turned around, because I didn't commit suicide. I didn't throw myself away.
Yeah.
Anybody out there, you seek help.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I locked myself in the church. I was had the key, and I was there all night, all morning. And the next day, my life changed.
Yeah.
Don't ever give up.
Yep, that's right. That's a poignant spot to end this little talk. Will you come back and we'll do it again someday?
If I'm alive.
Well, if either of us are. Pat Dell, you're a good friend, and I've always admired you, looked up to you, and I'm grateful that you've taken the time to be here today. Thank you very much.
Next time we'll talk about Harder Hall.
Oh, that's a whole nother thing, isn't it?
That's another 2 books.
Yeah, for sure.
The Havery Show has been brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020.